would happen if you took the 12 finest race drivers in the world.
He's spinning down the front stretch, back stretch, they're bring into turn 9.
We've got an accident off the start.
All of the greatest racing drivers in the world.
And he's going to give him a little help. There it is. Whoa!
He's up inside Bell. You see, he's made Bell spin. Unbelievable.
The premise, of course, is to determine who would be the world's greatest race driver.
Bobby Rahal and Michael Andretti tangle with one another.
Here comes Jeff Gordon around Zanardi.
Son and father touch coming down. Dale Jarrett wins the race. Kevin Harvick is the champion of IROC 26.
It's finally been done in an international race of champions.
ESPN Speed World welcomes you to Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois for True Value IROC racing. It is the third race of IROC 27, and it should be quite an event here this afternoon. This is the third race of the year. 2 have been held, and here are the point standings with 2 races completed. Kurt Busch is ahead of Mark Martin by just 5 points. Greg Biffle by 19. Then Mike Bliss and Jimmy Johnson make up the top 5 in the True Value IROC 27 point standings. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Jenkins, and, well, we have the greatest race drivers in the country gathered here this afternoon, 12 of them, but one driver has not participated in the True Value IROC series yet this year. He's a substitute driver, and the reason for that is because Felipe Giafoni from the IRL IndyCar Series was involved in an accident recently at Kansas City. Giafoni and Dan Weldon made contact, and it sent both cars into the wall. Giafoni got the worst end of it. He suffered a broken pelvis and a broken right leg, and so he is out of competition for quite a while, and we do have a substitute driver standing by to tell you more about that. Here's Dr. Jerry Punch.
Well, Bob, Indy Racing League's inaugural co-champion Scott Sharp will fill in for Felipe Giafoni today. And Scotty, great to have you back in the series, although not at the expense of an injured colleague. I know the good news, though, is that Felipe is doing well.
That's for sure. You know, Jerry, it's great to be back in the IROC series, but, you know, our thoughts and prayers are with Felipe. It's good to hear. I guess he got out of the hospital, and he's in a rehabilitation center, so, you know, hopefully we make a speedy recovery, and hopefully today I can, you know, do a great job for him and move him up in the point standings a little bit. Front row start, how do you play it early on? Well, you know, I watched the Busch guys and see what their outside got, you know, the second and fourth guy was doing, and pretty much they got shuffled back. So I'm going to try to get the best start I can, and if I can't do anything else, hop in line and get down the bottom as soon as possible. Hey, good luck to you. Thanks, Jerry. Bob Jenkins, don't be surprised, despite the limited practice, if Scott Sharp isn't a major factor in this one here today.
Well, Scott Goodyear is our open wheel analyst, and if there ever was a race in which the open wheel drivers did well, it was here last year. Buddy Lazier won. As a matter of fact, the open wheel drivers swept 4 of the top 5 positions.
Bob, it was just a great finish. You know, 1, 2, 3 up there. You always want to see that on the podium. And Buddy Lazier last year won by 5 seconds in that great finish. Now, the series this year you have to think about, they've changed the cars a little bit. They've actually taken some of the load off the car, taken some spoiler out of it, taken some wing out of it. The car will be more difficult to drive here, and I think it's going to have more of an effect on the IRL drivers than it will do actually on the Winston Cup drivers, simply because the cars are going to be harder to handle in the turn. So it'll be interesting to see if they can make do with it today.
Well, Jeff Burton is our stock car analyst. You drive for the Jack Roush team in Winston Cup, and as I look at the point standings, I see Martin and Busch and Biffle, 1, 2, 3. They're all Jack Roush drivers.
Well, it's a matter of pride. You know, you always want to be the best driver, whichever team you're at. And, you know, it's really interesting, too. We've got the guy that's been at Roush racing the longest, and then the 2 guys that have been in Winston Cup racing the least in there racing against Mark. So Roush racing takes a lot of pride in having great drivers. I like to say I'm one of them. And it's a lot of fun to see those guys battling it out. And Mark and Kurt are going to go at it.
Dr. Jerry Punch is standing by with Kurt Busch.
And Bob, IROC points leader Kurt Busch starts shotgun on the field way back here in the back of the pack on a very tight 1.5 groove racetrack. And Kurt, the question is, they said this track is not about drafting, but about driving. How do you drive this one from the back to the front?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of first-class gentlemen in front of me, and taking advantage of their mistakes is about nearly impossible because they don't make them. So this is a type of track where you've got to get positions early, and then, of course, take care of your right front tire because there's going to be a mood swing with the car. So those are things that I've seen. I'm going to try to follow Mark Martin for a little bit, but I've got to get by him for this points victory.
Hey, good luck to you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Kurt Busch starts at the back, but they have some company from a couple of his friends, including Winston Cup Roush regulars Greg Biffle, the recent winner at Daytona, and of course the 11-time winner in IROC, Mark Martin. When we come back, the starting lineup and the green flag from Chicago in just a moment.
Welcome back to Chicagoland Speedway, and next time around, these drivers will get the green flag to begin the race. Here's the starting lineup. On the pole for today's race, representing the IRL IndyCar Series, Helio Castroneves. And on the outside of the front row, also from the IRL IndyCar Series, Scott Sharp substituting for Felipe Giafoni. Castroneves will be in green, Sharp in red. Row number 2, representing the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Ryan Newman. And from the World of Outlaws, Steve Kinser. Newman will be in white, Kinser in the cream-colored car. Row number 3 from the World of Outlaws, Danny Lasowski. And from the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Kevin Harvick. Lasowski will be in dark orange, Harvick in gold. Row number 4 from the IRL IndyCar Series, Sam Hornish Jr. And representing the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Jimmy Johnson. Hornish will be in medium blue and Johnson in powder blue. In row number 5, representing the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, Mike Bliss. And from the NASCAR Busch Series, Greg Biffle. Bliss will be in violet, Biffle in dark blue. And in row number 6, representing the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Mark Martin. And also from the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Kurt Busch. Martin will drive the rose-colored car, and Kurt Busch will be in lime. Beautiful day here at Chicagoland Speedway, and we have several onboard cameras to complement our coverage. We will run 67 laps. That's a half mile over 100 miles. The banking here in the turns, 18 degrees. And this is the 14th different speedway to host an IROC races. This is the second time that the IROC series has visited here. We pointed that out earlier when Buddy Lazier won last year. Let's see who wins this year as the green flag comes out, and here we go. And Castroneves gets off to a good start. Scott Sharp did not get a good start, and Brian Newman from the inside of row number 2 comes up behind Castroneves, and Sharp finds himself back in third position as everybody else is side by side, and they go down the backstretch for the first time.
Three wide action pretty quickly here. You know, getting track position early in the race is really going to be important, because the longer the race goes, the more push you're going to get. Kinser really gets high. Let's see if he can get out of the wall right here, or really stack him up behind him.
Isn't it slick up there, Jeff? I mean, a lot of marbles up there, isn't there?
Yeah, you don't want to be that high. Of course, you don't want to be 4 wide either.
I noticed in the Busch race that was held here before this one that a lot of guys use that apron. Look at this. A lot of guys use that apron here in the tri-oval area in front of the grandstand.
Yeah, you can use it in tri-oval, but Mark Martin tried to use it going into turn 1, and that almost didn't work very well. That really shuffled him back. He's almost in last place. He's got to get up there because he's racing for the points.
Well, there's Mark Martin going to the inside in the rose-colored car and taking the spot away from Steve Kinser. That was for the last position. Kinser, by virtue of the fact that he did get up high there in corner number 4 last lap, lost all the positions back to the final spot. Side-by-side racing. Now that's Lasowski on the bottom of the racetrack and Sam Hornish Jr. up top. And here is Kinser. And look how far he is up there. Oh, I'm not sure but what he didn't bump the wall.
He's way up there, and then you can see what happens. Everybody's, you know, shuffling and getting out of gas, getting on the gas, trying to find a place to go. It just stacks everybody up and makes a big mess.
What do they say the rule is if you drive on the black part, because that's where the rubber is, and the gray's the dirty part where you don't want to be, and that was a great save.
Helio Castroneves leads. Ryan Newman, Scott Sharp running third. Kevin Harvick is back in 4th spot, while Mike Bliss is in 5th. Then behind that we have Busch, Lasowski drifting high here and losing a spot. Side-by-side action here in the lime green car is Kurt Busch, and Mike Bliss is to his outside.
Kurt Busch has made a big move. He started in 12th all the way in the back, and now he's running 5th. That's exactly what he wanted to do. He's got his track position, and now he'll hopefully be able to keep it.
You know, these cars are really spread out a lot, and we talked earlier in the show about how they turned around and they had an opportunity to take some of the aero off these cars to reduce the downforce and the grip in the turns, hopefully allowing these guys to have a little bit more racing room. And it certainly looks like this has worked so far.
Yeah, it really does. You can see there, Castroneves got a little bit high, and Newman really made a good, strong run at him. You need to try to be on the bottom. That's the best way around this racetrack. although these cars don't have a tremendous amount of power, you make it run high and keep up a little momentum, but I think the bottom's going to be the way to go, especially early in the race.
Well, they always say if you're on the bottom, you make the driver go around on the high side, which is a long way around, and I know it's true in Indy cars, it's true in these cars too, but you got to make the guy work for it, and he's closer to the wall on the exit of the turns, maybe not where you want to be sometimes.
You know, the other thing that's happening right now is there's 62 laps to go. This is a long race, and you're going to run on one set of tires. If you punish your tires right now, you are not going to have a good race car at the end. So some of the guys are holding back a little bit. Some of them are charging. It's really going to be interesting to see who uses their tires up and who doesn't. In my opinion, running a little bit high isn't good for your tires. Ryan Newman making a move for the pass underneath Castroneves.
And Castroneves loses the lead, and he loses second position. It looks like he's going to lose third.
That's probably that grip thing. They don't have as much grip we talked about, so if you make a mistake, you really pay for it.
We noticed last lap he wiggled a little bit, and that time he really wiggled and is falling back quite a bit, Doc.
Well, it's exactly what Jeff Burton was talking about. Dick Trickle and some of the IROC test drivers told these guys that if you abuse these tires, they're great tires, Goodyear's tires, you can actually run wide open here on the mat for 7 or 8 or 9 laps. But if you slide these tires for 9 laps wide open, the grip's going to go away. If you abuse them, you're going to pay for it. And I think Elio Castroneves just paid for it.
And now here's Busch and Bliss going to the inside of Castroneves. So Castroneves has fallen all the way back from the lead to 6th position, and he's losing even more spots now.
He may have some sort of a problem. He really is falling off the pace big time. Yeah, he's really slow. He must have he's got an engine problem, or he's run over something to cut a tire. He definitely has a problem.
Elio Castroneves started third last year here at Chicagoland and finished in 3rd position. His best finish in an IROC race was at Indianapolis last year when he started 3rd and finished 2nd. And now we have a spin sliding through the grass coming out of turn number 4, Sam Hornish. So a couple of the open wheel drivers from the IRL IndyCar series are having problems as Castroneves has pitted his car, and Hornish is trying to either drive to the pits or get out of the grass.
Well, actually, it turned out great for Castroneves. He saw it happening. He stayed out on the racetrack, so he's going to catch the yellow and not lose any laps.
And let's take a look at some replays here as Sam Hornish was running back in 10th position when this incident occurred.
Looks like to me he got off on the racetrack. Just got off the racetrack just a little bit, touched the apron, and when it did, it unloaded the car, took the wedge out of the car, and around it came. He couldn't control it after that point.
Just down on that white line. Now, I think those guys used to be able to run on that white line just a little bit before, but you know, this reduced downforce, Jeff, do you really think that's going to make that big of a difference on these cars?
I wouldn't think it would make that big of a difference. You know, it depends on what your car's doing. If your car's already loose and you get down there, and most likely these cars tend to be loose on the start of the runs because it carries so much fuel. See what happens here.
Sam Hornish taking the car around the racetrack, so he's still in competition, but he did spin just a few moments ago. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Next weekend, on top of all the high-speed NHRA action, ESPN and ESPN2 will educate viewers on the rules, regulations, and terms of drag racing, while also providing unique access to drivers and crews. Catch information dragway with qualifying on ESPN2 Saturday at 7, early final round action on ESPN Sunday at 2:30, and late final round action on the Deuce at 6 Eastern Time. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. We're under caution because Sam Hornish Jr., with whom we are riding right now at reduced speed, lost it coming out of turn number 4. He was by himself, didn't get any help or anything, but the car just broke loose from him, slid sideways on the track, then got down in the grassy area. And when he got things straightened out, he went to the pit area, and so did Elio Castroneves, Doc.
And Bob, both those drivers came in for 4 fresh Goodyear tires. Elio Castroneves said his car suddenly got very, very loose. He thought he might have had a tire going down. We heard Jeff Burton mention he may have cut a tire, and so that's why the car got loose. So he came in for 4 tires, and you saw the situation with Sam Hornish. He came in as well for 4 fresh tires, both back on the racetrack.
Ryan Newman is the leader of the race now with Scott Sharp. Beside him, they line up 2 abreast, so Sharp in 2nd position is 2nd. Harvick is 3rd, then Busch and Bliss as the pace car makes the exit from the racetrack onto pit road, and the field comes down to restart this event on lap number 8.
these double wide restarts really make it interesting because the guy that was running second, of course, he's on the outside, and the inside is probably the preferred groove. So it'll be interesting to see how the caution really changes this race. You can see Busch really trying to get on the inside as Bliss makes a move underneath him.
Sharp had a good start that time. He was actually on the line getting on the gas, but he's falling back quickly now. Definitely didn't like that high line going through 1 and 2.
Again, Scott Sharp in red at the top of the racetrack is substituting for Felipe Giafoni, injured in an IRL IndyCar accident at Kansas City. Up front, it is close quarters between Newman and Sharp. And then running in third position is Bliss.
That was a nice little bump draft. Hey, Biffle and Mark Martin both cleared Kurt Busch there after the restart. But he's not done yet. He wants some more.
You know, I think this new wing package is actually working because these guys just seem like they're loosening each other up coming through the turns, or it seems I know they got to get on the gas going through there. Before they used to say it was flat out, but right now there seems to be some passing coming out of the turns, which is making this a great race.
It really is a good race. These guys are going at it hard. You know, I made a comment earlier that people may be holding back, but I don't think that's going on right now.
If Mark Martin should win this race here today, he is in the rose-colored car, running back in the 6th position. He would become the all-time race winner in IROC competition, and Kevin Harvick is going to take the lead here from Ryan Newman at the end of the backstretch. Newman trying to hold on to the outside, but Harvick has the gold-colored car a nose ahead as they come off the corner. We'll see who has the advantage at the line. Good side-by-side racing, and Newman's going to get credit for leading that lap.
Newman really put his fender right against his Harvick's quarter panel to slow him down, take a little bit of air off of his car so that Harvick couldn't get back to the gas as quick, and that enabled him an opportunity.
He's high. He's high.
Oh, that's going to allow Mike Bliss to make the
sandwich.
Yeah.
I think I'm liking this new rules, guys. I like this new wing package they got going on here.
Look at Mike Bliss. Doctor putting on a fine show here at Chicagoland.
And the folks in the stands and the folks here are on their feet watching Bliss come by, and Newman and Harvick and company. Mike Bliss is the only driver in this field who has actually run a race today. He just finished a 300-mile NASCAR Busch Series event where he had a top 10 finish. And Mike said, what I know that others don't know is that the second groove will work. You can actually go up there and get some grip and possibly use that groove to come down and make a pass coming off the corner. So Bliss has a little experience here today in an event.
Man, oh man, they are banging and hammering on each other. Take a look at this from Ryan Newman's onboard camera. Harvick outside and Bliss inside. Excuse me.
Pardon me, I'm coming through. What a great forceful move.
Wow. The lime car again is Kurt Busch.
Harvick's hanging in there really well in that outside groove. He is not giving it up one bit. And you know, that's a good thing when you can run that outside groove because it makes the racing so much more fun to watch.
And that dark blue car down on the bottom of the racetrack is Greg Biffle. And boy, he made his Winston Cup mark at the Pepsi 400 recently. Great to see Greg Biffle win a Winston Cup race because, as you know, we sort of discovered him with our Winter Heat Series down in Tucson a few years ago. And of course, he got a lot of good comments from Benny Parsons that put him in the Winston Cup ride that he now has.
There's Castor Nevis trying to make the outside go around him on the outside. He has 4 new tires. And of course, in the IROC series, even though you have 4 new tires, those tires have laps on them, and they try to match the number of laps with how many laps are in the race. So they didn't put brand new sticker tires on the car. They put on tires that had the same number of laps on the car on them that he had on his race car. So they try to make it as little bit of an advantage as it can be. Cold tires are an advantage, though, but that advantage will go away fairly quickly.
The two guys running side by side behind Castro Nevis and Biffle are Jimmy Johnson in the light blue car, and then up on the high side is Sam Hornish, who spun earlier and has the car. Oh, he bumped the wall there coming off of 4.
I don't think you'll have any damage from that, though. That's just a little love tap.
These guys are using all the racetrack up now. That just seems like a great opportunity to go from the low to the high side, almost like an IndyCar line, but these guys run out of room when they get out of the side of the turns here.
We have 10 cars that are running pretty much together. They're separated by about 2 seconds, and then we have 2 drivers that are out of the draft and not competing with this group of 10. Those would be Steve Kinzer and Danny Lasowski, the 2 sprint car drivers. Here's a replay of the contact we saw a few minutes ago from Hornish coming out of the corner.
Again, he's just really high, and then he got squeezed up a little bit and didn't want to lift.
As we know, Sam, he doesn't lift off the throttle very often.
Biffle squeezes him up, and there's nowhere for him to go but either lift or turn right.
All right, back live now to the action.
It's a great race, guys. It really is. I mean, there's good hard racing. 51 laps to go. If we keep up this for 51 laps, we're going to be tired, much less the drivers.
That is Hornish, Johnson, and Sharp as they battle for 8th, 9th, and 10th. Ryan Newman, the Purdue University graduate who began in the open wheel ranks in the United States Auto Club and now, of course, is a regular of the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, is leading Jerry, but the challenge is on as Mike Bliss has some steam up again.
And Bob, Mike Bliss trying to make a move on the man who has an awfully good record at this racetrack. Talking about Ryan Newman, you mentioned he came from Purdue with an engineering degree. Here at Chicagoland, he has run 2 events, 1 Busch Series event and 1 Winston Cup. He sat on the pole for both races and led the most laps in both events, but now he is fighting for his life here in an IROC event.
Busch thought about making a 3 wide there, then he thought better of it. He's trying to push Bliss by Newman so he can clear Newman, but Kevin Harvick's decided he wants part of this action too. So that outside line's getting better and better and better, and Kurt may actually lose a spot here.
Oh, another bump there as Harvick and Busch made contact. Mark Martin is up on the high side of the racetrack.
The big factor here is who the guy behind Mark. I believe that's Castro Nevis maybe. If he goes with Mark, he's going to push him by Busch. That you get such an aerodynamic help with somebody behind you. You can clear the guy if you're beside him. And that's just the guy behind you can dictate what's going to happen to you many times.
We've had 3 leaders in the race so far. Ryan Newman has been out front the most, 13 laps. Elio Castro Nevis led 5, and Mike Bliss has been given credit for leading 1 lap. But good action here at Chicagoland Speedway in the 3rd race of IROC 27.
I get the impression that Castro Nevis is really comfortable with these cars. He's going high, he's going low. He's making a nice move here. He's come from the back up to 6th place. I get the feeling that he really is comfortable. He feels like he can drive that car anywhere he wants to, and he's been real aggressive. He's doing a really nice job.
Well, both he and actually Hornish seem like they're dependent on making this high line move themselves all the way around those guys, because right now they're working their heart out to try and make that fast lane up top, and we'll have to see if it works for them.
And contact here as Harvick and Newman are banging on each other, and they cross the line side by side.
I guess these guys know that once they're finished with these car after the 67 laps, it goes back in the trailer. They don't see it until August, until the brickyard. So it's not like it's their own car. They don't seem like they do worry about bending up fenders and getting to the side of each other.
This is really interesting here. Mark's on the outside, Harvick's on the inside. Kurt Busch decided to go with Harvick because he wants to clear Mark Martin. He wants to get in front of Mark Martin because they're racing for the championship. We're getting ready to be 3 wide right here.
Yes, we are. 3 wide at the line. And Mark Martin now battling for the 3rd position alongside Kurt Busch. Out in front, Mike Bliss. Ryan Newman running in 2nd position, and Bliss is beginning to lengthen his advantage just a little bit. We have 22 laps completed here at Chicagoland Speedway, and Mike Bliss showing the way in True Value IROC 27. For the 27th year, it's the International Race of Champions presented by True Value, and our 4th and final race of the season will be at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You can see that on Sunday, August the 3rd at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. The champion will be crowned at that time. So check it out Sunday, August 3rd, 1 Eastern. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. Mike Bliss leads. Ryan Newman, Kevin Harvick, Mark Martin, and Kurt Busch are the top 5. Right now, Bliss has about a 2nd lead. Actually, it's .938. And it hasn't really shrunk much in the last few laps. Actually, Mike Bliss is representing the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series as his champion, but he also was the USAC Silver Crown champion back in 1993. Came out of the state of Oregon.
I think everybody's catching their breath right now. It was quite a bit of dicing going on there, and now everybody's, you know, they're lined up and they're trying to run the guy down in front of them, and then try to, once they get to him, then try to do something with them. But they are slowly catching Bliss. You know, there's about maybe a half of a tenth of a second every lap they're catching him, down to less than 8/10 of a second now. So that train is certainly, through aerodynamics help, is running him down a little bit.
Yeah, it was right at 9/10 of a second for several laps, and as you indicated, now it's down to .782, and you can see that distance visually lessening as Newman and Harvick catch up to the leader, Mike Bliss.
As you were talking about before, Jeff, these cars change dramatically with that fuel load that burns off now. And I know with the reduced downforce, these open wheel guys were saying we'll just have to wait to see how it plays out here when we run 67 laps. But is that pretty typical to what these guys in the Winston Cup Series are also feeling, like yourself?
Yeah, I think so. You know, one thing, these IROC cars carry a bigger fuel cell, so there's more weight behind the rear end than what we have. And there seems to be a little bit more of a swing from loose to tight in the IROC cars. I think the thing that helps the Cup guys and the Busch guys and the truck guys is they're used to that loose feeling, like we spoke about earlier. In an IRL car with all the downforce it generates, you know, those things don't get loose, and when they do, you're handicapped in a big fashion. I think the Cup guys and the Busch guys and truck guys, they have more opportunity to make something happen when the car is loose, because they're a little more used to it. And then when it's tight, you know, I think it's the same for everybody, but because you can only do so much with a tight race car. But when it's loose, I think that's when that experience is really a big help.
Elio Castro-Neves, despite the fact that he had to make a pit stop and change tires, is running in 6th position, the two-time winner of Indy, Jerry Punch.
And Bob, earlier this week, Elio Castro-Neves and his Marlboro Team Penske teammate Gilles de Ferran were testing at Nashville for the upcoming IRL event. After the test, they were taken to visit RCA Studios in downtown Nashville. Took them to Studio B, where Elvis Presley recorded all those great hits. And Elio said, I was so moved, I decided I want to sing some Elvis tunes. So he recorded on a CD 2 Elvis tunes, Wake Up Little Susie and Can't Help Falling in Love. Now, where it is right now, there's only been 2 sold, one to him and one to Gilles de Ferran. And as they were leaving the studio, the RCA engineer said, guys, don't quit your day jobs.
Come on, Scott, sing along with me, huh?
Bob, you are the specialist in this trio for singing, and I give it to you for doing that. But
yeah, we'll hold that for later.
I think I'll pay not to listen.
You spent some smart money.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's Mark Martin and Kurt Busch. They're running 4th and 5th. They're 1.3 and 1.6 seconds behind the leader of the race. How fast are they going? The last lap was 159.957. There's 2nd place, Ryan Newman and Kevin Harvick right behind him.
Just a little bit over halfway in this race, and there's a whole lot that's yet to happen. And you know, one caution changes the outcome of the race because the double file restarts. Somebody's cars are going to get, you know, some people will get tighter than others. It's really going to be interesting to see. And the next 10 laps, I think you'll really start to see who's been holding back a little bit and who's going to go. About 20 to go is the cue. That's when people are going to want to go. Of course, you don't have spotters in the IROC series. So when I drove the IROC cars, what I always tried to do is I always try to find the scoreboard. And at this racetrack, it's in the center of the facility. That way I can look at the number and see how many laps were gone, because that's the only way you could. They tell you a 10 to go, and they'll tell you last lap, and that's the only thing they'll tell you. So you don't know how many laps are gone. I was always looking for the scoreboard, trying to figure out what lap we were on.
I thought you were supposed to keep your eyes on the racetrack.
Well, I wrecked a lot, too.
On board with Mark Martin. He is tied with Dale Earnhardt and Al Unser Jr. for 11 wins in his IROC career. So if he does win today, he will become the all-time winningest driver in this series. 41 drivers have won an IROC race, and there have been 106 of them. Harvick was the champion for last year. And the most recent first-time winner was Kurt Busch, who won at Talladega earlier this year. Martin continues to run 4th. as the race, at least at this point, still belongs to Mike Bliss, and he has lengthened that advantage to over a second over Newman, Harvick, Martin, and Busch. We'll be back with more from IROC at Chicagoland Speedway. Mopar Mile High Nationals qualifying next Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, and during all of the NHRA shows next weekend, going to be doing what we're calling Information Dragway, and we'll be updating viewers and educating viewers on rules, regulations, and terms of drag racing. Qualifying Saturday, 7 o'clock Eastern. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. Speaking of drag racers, Dr. Jerry Punch is with one of the top drag racers, as Mike Bliss has a 1.6-second lead over Ryan Newman.
And Bob, the hot rumor swirling here in IROC is that next year we may have a representative from NHRA, and possibly this guy standing to my left, a 14-time Funny Car winner, Ron Capps, driving for the Snake Prud'homme. And Ron, I'm told by the IROC engineers that you have tested at Talladega and here and have been very impressive.
Well, it's been great. The learning curve, Jason Nori, everybody at IROC, Dick Trickle, Dave Marcus, a lot of the test drivers have been great with me, and the guys in the series. And they've come out and put me right in the middle of the, I'm out there trying to get lap times, and they're out there bumping with me. So they put me right to the wolves, and it's been fun, but we're keeping our fingers crossed when we get in here next year.
If you run here next year, you got to promise me two things. At the end of the straightaway, you'll turn left and never, ever pull the chute.
Not until the last lap. But, hey, everybody wonders, I do 320 miles an hour, and they think it's slow for me out here, but I got news for you, man. I got a whole new respect for all these Winston Cup guys. It's amazing.
It'll be good to have you here next year, Ron. We hope you come join us.
Thank you.
Ron Capps hoping to be a part of IROC next year. And by the way, just a moment ago, Elio Castroneves pulled down pit road, and apparently something broke inside the engine of his IROC machine. He is headed back to the garage area, and the car sits here on pit road.
And Steve Kinzer has also dropped out of competition, so we have 10 cars that are still in the running. And Mike Bliss has a 1.8-second advantage over this group of cars. Pretty good race here. That's Newman, Harvick, Martin, and Busch, second, third, fourth, and fifth. And then back of Busch is Johnson, then Biffle, Harnish, Sharp, and Lasowski.
All our IRL open wheel guys, the IndyCar guys, are all in the back, so maybe they're not liking this new rule package. It makes these cars a little bit neutral or loose getting through the turns, because they've not been able to make a dent with some of these Winston Cup guys that are running up front.
But if you stretch that just a little bit, both Mike Bliss and Ryan Newman grew up in open wheel racing, so
we'll take credit. We'll take credit for that one. Jeff,
let me tell you something. The open wheel guys can hold their ground just fine. This is an environment that is harder for those guys, because when they do make the cars drive worse, that's advantageous to the guys that do it every single week. So, that's just how that is. And they didn't do it to, unfairly penalize any group. They did it to make the racing great. And as we saw earlier, the racing was great. Now it slowed down a little bit, but earlier the racing was great. And it's hard to do both.
I think what happens is, from my experience in these cars, is the weight with these cars, 3,500 pounds compared to 1,500 pounds that we have with the IndyCar. And yes, an IndyCar has more horsepower. These have 500. IndyCar has 700 pounds. But you go into the turn on an IndyCar and you turn it, and it feels just basically like a big board. And you get in these cars here, and just because of the movement with the car, everything seems to move and roll on you, and it's a little uncomfortable for the single seat guys. And to say what you're saying, Jeff, for the guys that do it week in, week out, they're so used to it, and you come here and have an opportunity to drive these cars, it's a tough go.
I think it is, and I think it would be easier to go to a car that made a tremendous amount of downforce. Not that it's easier to drive, but I think the transition would be easier on a car where you can run wide open pretty much, every lap. I think that transition would come to you quicker than having to go back. When you step into one of these cars, you're stepping back in time. Those guys are driven specifically designed race cars that make a tremendous amount of downforce, horsepower to weight ratio. These things are big, heavy wagons, and it's harder to transition from a great driving vehicle to a poor driving vehicle, in my opinion.
But they're a lot of fun when we come out and do it, though, I'll tell you that. We thank them for inviting us.
Scott Sharp running back here in 9th position. He did compete here at Chicagoland Speedway last year. He was in the series full-time last year. Of course, serving as a substitute driver for Felipe Giafoni here this afternoon. He was also in the IROC series back in 1994. All right, well, action's picking up here for second, third, and fourth as Busch tries to get to the inside of Kevin Harvick. There wasn't any room down there. He falls back in line, but I just have the feeling now with 13 laps to go that we're going to start seeing some movement here from this group.
Yeah, the lap before he got on, somehow, I didn't see it start, but he got on the outside of Mark Martin and got around Mark Martin. Something happened with Ryan Newman and Harvick. Harvick tried to get underneath Newman, couldn't make it happen. Opened up the outside for Busch, and he took advantage of it and got by Mark.
Well, Mike Bliss is starting to look like Buddy Lazier did last year. He just seems to be settled into a groove and checking out. And recall that last year Lazier won by about 5 seconds, and it seems like Bliss right now might be doing the same thing.
Oh, and here is Kurt Busch now going to the inside and making the pass on Kevin Harvick, and Mark Martin is going to come along on the inside, and suddenly Harvick falls from third to, well, we won't call that yet.
This way just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I think this is a factor of the tires starting to run off the cars. We're toward the end of the race. People are starting to lose a handle. Like to me, Kevin Harvick picked up a pretty big push getting off of turn 4, and Busch drove underneath him, and now he's having to deal with Mark Martin.
Let's see. The scoring monitor showed that Kevin Harvick was ahead when they crossed the line, so we'll give him that. But it's a great side-by-side battle between Harvick on the high side of the racetrack and Mark Martin down low for the 4th spot.
So much for Chicago being a one-groove racetrack.
Yeah.
The second groove has really come in nicely today. And Mark's going to clear him now.
Yep.
Let's see what happens, though. He's just going to push up the racetrack and see if Harvick can drive back under him. He's not going to be able to, but it looked for a minute there that Mark drove in the corner. Wasn't going to be able to stay on the bottom, but he could.
Martin moves to 4th position. It's still Bliss, Newman, Busch, Martin now 4th. Harvick is 5th. Less than 10 laps to go at Chicagoland Speedway. Chicagoland Speedway, race 3, True Value IROC 27. Nothing going on up front. Mike Bliss with almost a 3-second lead. You got a quick glimpse of Ryan Newman in white running second. Here is 3rd and 4th. Busch and Martin have been trading paint and passing each other the last couple of laps. Right now, Martin back in 4th.
Yeah, Mark caught him and drove by him. He's going to drive up beside him again here, I think. And then Kurt was able to get right to his rear bumper and actually push him getting in the corner. And it didn't allow Mark to stay on the bottom, so Kurt drove back by him. Now Mark wants to do the same. This could be the race for the championship. With Indy coming up, a place that's hard to pass, those two guys will probably have to start in the back. This race could be the championship. So, you know, they want to finish in front of the other one. There's no doubt about it.
Mark Martin in the rose-colored car is a 4-time IROC champ. He has won more championships than any other driver in the International Race of Champions, and he won 3 straight titles in 96, 97, and 98.
What tends to happen when you're running where Kurt Busch is, he's trying to get by Ryan Newman. The negative of that is when he gets to Ryan Newman, he's going to lose the front end of his car. His car is going to quit turning. If Mark's far enough behind, he can get a run and get beside Kurt Busch. And that's what Mark's hoping for. He's hoping that Kurt will lose the front end and pick up a push, and he can drive up to him and get door to door with him and then try to beat him back around.
Because what Busch is thinking about right now, if I get one more spot, more points, something that you were just saying a second ago. So
there he is right there.
There he goes.
Yep.
Down on the right line to do it.
Ryan won't quit. He's going to drive in there deep on the outside and try to hold that position. And Mark's going to try to go with him. He's going to try to push Ryan down the back straightaway to get him in front of Kurt, so hopefully he can clear Kurt as well.
Less than 4 laps
that he needs to play. You know, he needs to race against Kurt, not with him. He needs to push the other guy.
Good on-board camera activity here.
Oh, that's tight right there.
You can really hear them working the throttle also right in the middle of the turn.
Martin heads up high. Here comes Harvick. Oh, there's contact between Mark and Ryan. Here comes Harvick down low to make it 3 wide off the corner down the backstretch. Whoa!
Well, who's going to give? Who's going to give? Mark Martin's going to give. He's the older of the 3.
The wiser, too, huh?
That's for sure. Kurt really drove it in there deep, trying to clear Harvick coming off the 4. Looks like he did it. Well, he didn't quite do it.
Less than 2 laps to go. 65 complete at Chicagoland. Mike Bliss way out front. Ryan Newman's up there in white, and then look at this 5-car battle.
First car really looks like it goes to the middle of the corner very well. He can get in that gas and make a nice move. He's cleared Harvick. That's put a car between he and Mark Martin. That's exactly what he was hoping to happen.
As we're watching this battle, both Hornish and Sharp, replacement for Giafone right now, are falling back simply because I don't think they're probably liking their race car right now.
There's the white flag. 1 more lap to go around Chicagoland Speedway for Mike Bliss, and he'll have his first IROC victory and become the 42nd driver to take the checkered flag. Here's the interval between first and second. There's Newman. In comes Busch, Harvick, Martin, Biffle, and then Johnson is a little bit behind Biffle. Looks like they're going to fall into single file formation. Meanwhile, off of corner number 4, here is Mike Bliss winning his first IROC race at Chicagoland Speedway in 2003. Second is Newman, then Busch, Harvick, Martin, Biffle, Johnson, Hornish, and Sharp. Lasowski will finish in 10th position when he comes around, and then 2 cars, of course, dropped out of the race, Castro Neves and Kinzer. But Mike Bliss from Milwaukee, Oregon, has won his first IROC race and becomes the 42nd different winner to do so. We will talk to him when we come back to Chicagoland Speedway. The average speed of the race, by the way, with a caution 137.384. Back in a moment. IROC 27, race number 3 at Chicagoland Speedway, won by Mike Bliss. And did he do some donuts after the checkered flag? Put on an incredible display of driving ability right in front of the sold-out grandstand, and then quietly drove to victory lane. And that's where our Dr. Jerry Punch has caught up with him.
Well, he is the reigning Craftsman Truck Series champion for NASCAR, now running full-time for Joe Gibbs and Busch Series Racing. But today, he is the winner of the True Value International Race of Champions events here at Chicagoland Speedway. A rookie driver winning here, beating the best from open wheel and stock car racing. And Mike, congratulations on a great effort.
It was awesome. This thing was really good today. I was a little conservative on getting in the corner because I didn't want to hurt the tires. I just came off the Busch race, so I knew exactly what the track was like. Probably was a little help to me. But his car, the IROC guys did a great job with getting everything handled right. And, you know, these guys work hard at it, and they had some good cars today.
I know you grew up like I did watching the International Race of Champions in the early years. The Fittipaldis and the Foyt and Andretti and some of the guys, the legends in racing, come here to race and win. What does this win mean to you, winning as a rookie?
It's big. I mean, I've watched these IROC cars for years on ABC, and so, you know, years ago when those guys were running, and you know, 10 to go, I was counting them down. When I hit that checker, man, my whole body was tingling. It was exciting to beat all those guys. These are the best, you know, and I'm here just like they are to beat them, and I was fortunate today. We had a great car, and Goodyear tires were awesome. The Goodyear tires just stuck really good.
I don't know what was more impressive, your dominating win here or the donuts afterwards. The fans were standing, screaming, and cheering those donuts. You're an expert at donuts out there.
It's been a while since I did a donut, you know, and kind of came back to me. But, you know, it's fun. This is a lot of fun to race these cars, and I'm just excited to go to Indy next.
Hey, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Mike Bliss, a rookie. 2 rookies winning in a row. Kurt Busch at Talladega, and today Mike Bliss gets his very first win here in round 3 of IROC 27 at Chicagoland.
I remember Mike Bliss being so good in the open wheel cars, especially at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And we're about, what, 200 miles or so north of there today, where Mike Bliss has won his first IROC race. Here are the unofficial results. Newman finished second. The other former USAC star, Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick, Mark Martin, and Greg Biffle rounded out the top 6. And then the second 6 included Jimmy Johnson, Sam Hornish Jr., who spun coming off turn number 4, Scott Sharp in substitution for Felipe Giafone, Danny Lasowski, Elio Castro Neves, and Steve Kinzer. Now let's take a look at the points. And these are, of course, the point standings as we head into our final race of the year at Indianapolis. Just an 8-point separation between Bliss and Busch, and only a 9-point separation between Busch and Mark Martin. So Martin certainly has an opportunity to win his 5th IROC title at Indianapolis. So, Scott, not nearly the performance this year of the open wheel drivers here at Chicago that we saw last year.
Well, it was a dominating performance last year by Buddy Lazier, but we're going to one of the toughest tracks we have coming up, Bob, Indianapolis. Not much banking there. Remember, over 30-degree banking both at Talladega and Daytona, 18 degrees here. The tough racetracks coming up for the IRL guys at Indianapolis.
And you can see the 4th and final race at which we will crown the champion Sunday, August 3rd here on ESPN, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. 4th and final race in conjunction with Brickyard 400 weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Once again, thanks for joining us here at Chicagoland today for this 3rd race of the year, where Mike Bliss has emerged victorious. Coming up next here on ESPN, Baseball Tonight. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more information, log on to ESPN.com.